Hello and welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Willy Daunic of 102.5 The Game. He is also the voice of the Nashville Predators. This episode presented by The Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water. The Well is a coffee house with a mission to bring clean water to the world. It has helped over 30 communities across the globe have access to safe water, health, and hope. You can make an impact by visiting a Well Coffee House location today. You can find those in Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. You can also find more information at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. Thank you also to our co-presenting sponsor, WellSpire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Our news today, presented by Sutherland and Belk, a local injury law firm committed to helping those who've been injured in accidents. If you or someone you know has been in a wreck or other accident, call Sutherland and Belk, see what your rights are. You can find their contact info online at sbinjurylaw.com. Good guys, good friends of mine. And again, if you have the need, check those guys out. Anyway, Florida kickoff time now set for 11 a.m. Central. The Florida game, of course, will be 2 weeks from now. The Commodores have South Carolina on tap first. Our guest line brought to you by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on Boll & Branch sheets for years. Wouldn't trade them for anything. They are fair trade certified. That means they're made under safe conditions by men and women who were treated and paid fairly. Try them for a month. You can return them for free, but you won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress, which was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That's spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Willy Daunic joins us now. Willy, of course, a former Vanderbilt basketball and baseball player. Willy, thank you for joining us today. We are now a week and a half removed from the Missouri game. I think that stunned all of us. As it's had time to settle in what Vanderbilt did that day, what do you make of that going forward?
Well, I guess we will find out from here until the end of the season. I think based on what we have seen going forward, and you would probably know better than me, just from where I sit, though, my opinion would be that Derek Mason is still not out of the woods. I think it's a great start, but you got to hope that they can build on this. If it's just a one-time thing, this in a vacuum, the win over Missouri, is probably not going to get him where he wants to go, which is, in his own words, he wants to be the guy going forward with Malcolm Turner to make this football program something that can go even to the next level. And as we discussed a lot last week, I think it's gone to a much better level than it was, say 15, 20, 25 years ago. It's come a long way, but I think everybody's expectations have changed. And so I think, these next few games are going to tell us a lot.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And again, I don't think they want to make a change, but I think if, say, they just win one more game, which presumably would be East Tennessee State, it's going to be hard for Malcolm Turner to keep him and sell that to the fan base. And, another win on top of that, maybe not, well, in terms of being able to do it in terms of keeping him here. But I think the thing that stood out to me is it's a little hard to figure their schedule going forward. Let's start this Saturday. South Carolina has been really erratic. Won at Georgia, really looked terrible in Knoxville last week. You look to Kentucky a few weeks from now. Lynn Bowden, a converted receiver, is playing quarterback, and they meet Missouri in sort of a weird game where Kelly Bryant gets hurt, and I don't know if Missouri mailed it in or not that night, but it didn't play well. That game was played on a soggy field in Lexington on a chilly night, which adds a weird dynamic to it. You have Tennessee really looking much better in October, but the Vols kind of did this last year where they looked really good, beat Auburn, beat Kentucky, and really laid some stink bombs down the stretch, including a game to Vanderbilt. You throw in the wild card with Vanderbilt, and us not knowing exactly what they were after the Missouri win. This is look, I don't think Vanderbilt's going to be favored in any of those games, but there's an odd dynamic to just kind of figure out exactly what are we looking at, not just with the Commodores, but who they're playing as well.
I think that's what makes it fun, right? I think we all feel like we want to have it figured out, the college football dynamic at this stage of the season, once you've seen everybody play 5, 6, 7 games. But the reality is that it's an evolution of a team. As you just described, there's a lot of different paths that different teams take. And so the question is, what will Vanderbilt do with the weeks ahead of them? I talked to Derek Mason on our radio show yesterday, and he seemed to think they had a very good week, a bye week. Then they took a little bit of time off. They come back. They've got issues at quarterback that they have to sort out with the concussion protocol of Mo Hassan. But as you just mentioned, I mean, everybody's got issues that they're dealing with. So they have a certain amount of control. And I agree with you. I would not be completely shocked if they won only one more game or maybe only two more games. But I also wouldn't be shocked if they can do something similar that they've done the last couple of years and make a nice run at the end of the year. If they can continue to improve, play together, and be a better team at the end of the season than they were 3 weeks ago.
Well, my apologies. I did not hear Derek's appearance on your show this week, but what stood out to me when I heard him Tuesday at the press conference, the thing that came up constantly, not just with him, with the players, but there was a lot of emphasis on getting healthy. Seems like they took the last week to maybe rest up, but that was a big talking point for them on Tuesday.
Yeah, we didn't emphasize that as much, but I do think, just like any team at this stage of the season, there had to be some guys that could use the rest. But I think also for a section of your roster, good teams continue to work on developing, especially the younger players on your roster, maybe some that haven't played as much, some guys that could become very useful either by choice or almost by desperation if other guys get hurt. It's just inevitable that by the end of the year, you're going to have a banged up roster somewhere on the roster. So how do you make use of that time?
Willie, the other odd thing about the season, and just is what is an increasingly odd year, is I said going in, and I think most people agreed with this, that their bread would need to be buttered on offense. They had the big three who were good enough to play basically anywhere, maybe outside of Alabama. And I'm not sure that some of those kids couldn't see the field for Alabama too. And everybody said that's what they need to build their offense around. They put up some good numbers at the end of last year. The defense was a thing we were all concerned about, and the first 6 weeks certainly underlined that concern for all of us. Now look at where they are. They have Mo Hassan at quarterback. One of his attributes is running. They only trusted him to throw the ball 11 times against Missouri, which I think was the right call. You've had an offensive line that struggled. And on defense, suddenly, again, we have no idea whether the Missouri performance was legit or not, but it was certainly a good one that day. And now I'm thinking everything gets turned on its head. You kind of want them to grind it out offensively, maybe make it a slow-paced offensive game, except maybe in spots if going up tempo suits you. And then on the other side, hope your defense can hold teams to 17, 20 points and hope you can just score enough to win. To me, that's their battle plan going forward. What do you think?
Well, I think we're going to find some stuff out. I think it starts with whether Mo Hassan is able to play right by the end of the week. That's a tough break there to have him show those signs of life and then have to sit out and maybe not, and even maybe I'm assuming I know what protocol is, which means he can't practice until he clears the protocol. That's important reps for a guy that just took over the job that he's going to be missing in some form until he's cleared, if he's cleared. So I think that's something you have to consider. But I agree with you that I don't think that they're at a point now where they feel like they're going to outgun teams offensively. I think they've played enough to realize that. I think it's somewhere in between. I'd still love to think that you can continue to get some explosive plays from Keyshawn Vaughn and Pinckney and company, particularly Vaughn. But I think the attitude against Missouri did seem to be a little bit more of a low possession approach. Let's not try to win the game 35-33. And I think that's probably a sound thought.
Let's say, for argument's sake, that Mo Hassan does not play. I think he will. But let's say he doesn't play, or another possibility would be that he plays and gets knocked out early, which has happened frequently with quarterbacks and has happened with him. So let's say Vanderbilt goes to Riley Neal. I believe he would be the number 2 at this point. In fact, I believe that's how they're listing him. What do you do with Riley Neal now? Because I don't think what they were doing worked. He does have some ability to run the ball. They worked on some run pass options in August. Do you maybe try to have him doing some of the same things that Mo Hassan did?
Well, I thought Riley Neal did a pretty remarkable job last week under the circumstances. I thought that was a tremendous show of mental toughness. Completely check out and say, okay, I came here. It's not working out. I've been benched. That didn't work. What do I do now? But he was prepared. And on top of that, he has the terrible interception on his first throw, which I think would have sunk a lot of us, probably myself included. But he bounced back from that, I think, admirably. So I think that gives him a little bit of a lift. It probably gives the team belief that if he's back in there, that maybe he can be more effective. And I think I saw some things. I thought they did run a quarterback option or two, a read option or two with him in there. He's not as fast as Hassan, but it does look like that's got to be part of the ingredients to try to get the goals achieved, which is get Vaughn, get Pinckney, get Lipscomb in space, good matchups to exploit.
Bonus points if you can answer this, because I don't know if I can. What do you make of their defense right now?
That's a great question. It just looked like a totally different group to me against Missouri. For a team that had been sort of run over, they stopped the run. And there were times where rush on the quarter, but the quarterback couldn't find anybody field. And then there were times when I really saw a great pursuit to the ball, maybe better speed than I thought I had seen before. And I know you don't individually get faster as a player, but I think you can get a little faster as a defense. And that's what they were trying to sell. Now the question is, can they carry that over to South Carolina? It's a major question.
Well, here's how I see it. I think they're getting some younger corners. I'm not going to say they're good SEC players right now, but you've got guys like B.J. Anderson, Jalen Mahoney, who were, I think, clearly developing. You've got some numbers there. They've played a lot of guys. I don't know if D.C. Williams comes back and becomes a factor. He's missed some time, or if Cam Watkins can be a factor. But you have numbers, and you have some young guys who have shown some things at times. I thought the biggest takeaway I got from that game was that their linebackers have gotten better. Their inside guys had just been dreadful at times. They were more solid for sure, if not just flat out solid against Missouri. But the outside guys, you had LaShawn Polino-Bell making some plays. You had Andre Mintz making several plays. Kenny Hebert has shown the ability to do that at some points. Now all of a sudden you can look at a defense and say, hey, maybe there are some attributes on the positive side that they can take and use going forward to maybe win some games.
Well, the confidence you start with the confidence, right? When you have a game like that, I think you go into the next game with a much better belief system than you had before. And the other thing I would say is, and I'm not a football coach at all, I don't know what their scheme is, but I do know that as a young athlete that's trying to jump in there, and maybe you haven't had a lot of experience, you don't physically get faster, but I think you can play faster once you understand the defense more and your confidence is up, if that makes sense. And let's hope that that's what the situation is. But on the other hand, I do think if you're a Missouri, you can have a bad game. I do think that it was probably a classic case of a team that was a little bit overrated, a little bit full of themselves, and a team that was, because of that, ripe to get it. I think the Vanderbilt caught Missouri on the right day. I would not expect that to be the case on Saturday. You've got South Carolina playing at home. They're going to be extremely angry and determined and desperate to have to. This is a must-win for South Carolina. So I think it's the mentality of the opponent is going to be quite different.
You used 3 words there that I think are really key this time of the year. One was confidence, one was hope, and you didn't come out and use the word motivation, but you touched on it there. I think those things, for them, finally there's something to hope in. Okay, you say if you're Vanderbilt, hey, look, we just beat a top 25 opponent that had a really good offense. We slowed Kelly Bryant down like probably no one had all season before he got hurt. So there's some things there that you can build on. Motivation, the other thing, that's honest to God what I was afraid of. I thought that he might have lost the team. I was hearing some things. Nobody would come out and say Derek's lost the team, but it sounded like maybe he had lost certain segments of it or players weren't dialed in. That's not what we saw against Missouri. So I think that is really something that if you're looking for encouraging signs the rest of the year, that is a good place to start.
Well, that as you say that, I'm reminded of an interesting answer I got from Coach Mason on our radio show yesterday because, how you handle adversity is so important. And you sort of mentioned the question might have been arising has he started to lose the team. And obviously that question was answered with the win over Missouri, at least for the time being. But I asked him about Jared Pinkney. Now, here's a guy that anybody who's talked to him realizes he's an impressive guy. This guy has a tremendous presence about him to go with the talent we've seen on the field. And obviously, everybody knows it. He hasn't had the production catching the ball that everybody thought he would, and probably he thought he would. So I asked Coach Mason about how Pinkney has handled that, and I thought it was an interesting answer. He basically said, you know what, I understand that he's frustrated. I commend him, and I'm paraphrasing here. I commend him for not saying anything publicly. He's handled it very well from that respect, but you can tell in his answer that, yeah, there's been some discussions, and there's probably a lot of frustration on everybody's part. Everybody knows how respected Jared Pinkney is, and he hasn't been productive. But Derek pulled it then class play. And you got to hope that A, the production will start being there with the pass catching, and B, that he's proven to a lot of people that watch him that you can help your football team win even if you're not catching passes. And he commended him for the job he's doing blocking and doing the responsibilities on each play, even if they involve him not going out and catching the ball.
Today's mailbag sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Do you need an insurance agent who wants to know your unique needs and circumstances and will tailor an insurance plan to fit them? Josh is your guy. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He's my agent. Give him a shot, and I think you will be pleased. Mr. Vandy says, what has the response been to the Jeff Fisher rumors, those pertaining to Jeff Fisher wanting the Vanderbilt job if it comes open, from the callers to your show?
Great question. And a question, shall we say, is made for talk radio. So it was a perfect thing for us to chew on. Although, let's take the source, Adam Rittenberg, a very, I think, knowledgeable source, a guy that's been covering college football for a long time. But anytime something like this comes out, it's pure speculation. And let's remind everybody that Adam Rittenberg also wrote the piece saying that Philip Fulmer was heavily considering taking over for Jeremy Pruitt a few weeks ago after they had lost to Tennessee. I think we know that things can change, and it seems a little far-fetched. It seemed at the time, and it really seems far-fetched now. I also really don't like the principle of rumoring guys for jobs when the job is not open. So I just think that is breaking the code to a degree in journalistic fashion. I just don't think that's ethically right. But at the same time, I realize that this isn't the first time that people speculate somebody. So here's how we did it on our show. We looked at it from both sides. We asked the question, why would Vanderbilt be interested in Jeff Fisher? And it's easy to say, well, Malcolm Turner hired Jerry Stackhouse, a guy completely outside the box, a guy that had not been connected to college basketball in a long, long time. The same could be said for Jeff Fisher. And then I think the better question might be, why would Jeff Fisher be interested in Vanderbilt? This is a guy that at his age, at this stage of his career, I think he wants to go to a place where he can win big right away. But so why is he intrigued? I guess he loves Nashville. He doesn't have any other offers, maybe. But the other thing is, I think it's clear, and he said it on our show, Coach Fisher wants to coach again. He wants to be a head coach somewhere. He has also, over the years, been very adept at keeping his name in the forefront, keeping his name out there. So Malcolm Turner shot this down yesterday pretty strongly. I believe Malcolm Turner is right when he said it. So I don't know if there were casual conversations initiated by somebody at Vanderbilt, just in a hypothetical, or did Jeff Fisher go talk to somebody and then float it out there through the media that he just wants to have his name for something like this? It's hard to know.
Willie, I know you need to run. Have you got just like maybe 60 seconds to talk Predators?
Well, they're really off to an excellent start. They played a dominating game Tuesday night against the Chicago Blackhawks, which is always fun to dominate your arch rival like that. They've now strung together 4 straight wins without one of their best players in Philip Forsberg. And then the biggest news of the week was getting Roman Josi, their captain, signed to an 8-year contract extension. His current contract expires after this year, so he's got a new deal for the next 8 years, starting on July 1, which is just fantastic news to get locked up at a reasonable price. Now, you knew how good he was going to be. He could have gotten a lot more on the open market. Says a lot about Nashville as a city, as a sports town, and as an organization for the Predators, that they've been able to lock up a lot of their best players at a little bit of a team discount.
That makes my wife very happy. He is her favorite player. Last thing, I think, and I was watching the series, did the Predators get off something like 70 shots on Tuesday night? That's incredible.
They had that many shot attempts. They had 51 shots on goal, which is still a very, very high number. They had 40 at the end of the second period, and at that point, I don't say they called off the dogs, but you don't gamble quite as much at that point. It was a dominating performance for 60 minutes, no doubt.
Willie, I need to let you go. I want to give you just a minute to promote your show, your Twitter handle, anything else like that.
Well, we're on ESPN Radio, 102.5 The Game, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. weekdays. And then you can find me on Twitter at WillieD1025. That's Willie with a Y, D1025. And, of course, the next Predators broadcast is Thursday night against the Calgary Flames.
Thank you, Willie.
All right, thanks, Ben.
He's Willy Daunic. I'm Chris Lee. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast. We'll have more episodes coming your way later this week.